What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Wealth of the Futures channel. Today is Saturday, November 11th, a beautiful day here in Arizona. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Some of you guys know I've had an interest in doing a technical review of the Omisego project. So this video is going to cover that. I'm going to go over the white paper, highlight some of the key parts of it, try to do some interpretation, answer some questions, and if you guys like this video, you find it helpful, please hit that like button, consider subscribing to my channel, and yeah, I'd love to hear your opinions about this. So without further ado, I'm going to pull up the white paper, and I'm going to try to zoom in here so everybody can see it. So let's do that. Okay. Alright guys, so I have the original Omisego white paper here. The title of it is the Decentralized Exchange and Payments Platform. I also have the latest slide deck that Omisego provided. I think it was at the end of October. And so we'll go over that and discuss really the meaning behind it and really potentially what the implications are for the technology. Alright? Okay. So with that said, guys, let's get into it. So for those that, I know there's, let me see if I can scale this a little bit for you guys. A little bit better. Okay. And scale this down. Okay, perfect. Okay, guys, so what I did for this review is I went through the white paper and I basically created like my own version of Cliff Notes and comments in this PDF. I actually want to hit up a shared version you guys could actually see for yourselves, so you could add your own comments and questions. I would like to actually do that for the group. So if you guys have any ideas about the right applications to implement that, I'd be more than all ears. I mean, maybe Google would have something like that. Maybe the Google Share Docs with a PDF feature. But you can see here, obviously the abstract here, Omisego building the decentralized exchange. You guys will hear the term DEX. That's just short for decentralized exchange for those that didn't know. Liquidity provider mechanism, clearinghouse, messaging network, and asset-backed blockchain gateway. So we're going to go over each of those terms. The key thing here is that obviously Omisego is not owned by a single one party. So that's the whole point of obviously a decentralized exchange, is to really mitigate the risk associated with like one large company controlling all money or all sources of power. Okay. They go on to say that they're interested in, uses this mechanism of protocol token to create proof-of-stake blockchain to enable enforcement of market activity amongst participants. So nothing surprising there, obviously, with that. Let's go into their conclusion statement, which I find key just to capture the essence of the project. This is achieved using smart contracts, protocol tokens, enforcing correct market behavior of order book matching, a new construction of Ethereum-bonded external enforcement of clearinghouse activity, and commitments to historical exchange data for use with Ethereum smart contracts. What does that actually all mean? So let's get into the problem statement and try to understand what it is they're looking to address here, okay? So as we all know, the primary role of blockchains are to solve the coordination and I guess you could call it the collaboration in some cases between parties. So they say here problems among multilateral agreements. All that means, guys, is agreements between many different people or many different organizations. So you can have agreements between banks, you can have agreements between a person and a bank, you can have an agreement between a person and banks, basically where maybe a business is associated with one bank, but the person buying the goods is associated with another bank. So these are all examples of what we call multilateral agreements. So they're looking to basically solve that problem of getting around some of the issues with fees and a number of large intermediaries associated with that. And not only doing that, but doing it in a transparent way where the operations are known and the agreed upon conditions are guaranteed not to change. That's an important one, obviously, when you're conducting business with multiple parties. Okay. Now, they go on to say here, and I'm going to just let's see what my clip notes mentions here. Okay, guys. So yeah, I just put that clarification for those that were curious about that. Now, participants have significantly higher guarantees that a single party has difficulty forcing other parties in the future into usurious rent extraction via change in business processes or information asymmetry. What does that mean, guys? It basically means that right now in the markets with banks and other powerful institutions, they basically have monopolies over general people or even under general businesses. So obtaining access to opportunities or information whereby you can make an informed and educated decision as to what products may work best for you as either a consumer or business. You're not really given that information. You don't know what's really going on, and you don't have probably a number of options, especially in these developing countries. So information asymmetry, what it basically means is one party effectively having a disadvantage because they don't have all the information at hand to make the informed decision, and that basically results in one party having an advantage over the other, in this case banks. And the fact that there's probably only a few that people can use to conduct their transactions and they're charged high fees to do that, that's where they're tying in this usurious rent extraction, okay? Moreover, the businesses, they often change their rules. They can slap on additional fees. So this is what it's basically saying, is that they're trying to create a process where contractually the parties engaged in this type of new way to do business, they won't be able to do that. So I think that's really key in what it is Omisego is doing. Okay. So they give some examples here of issues with coordination, the coordination problem between the payment processors, the gateways, and the financial institutions. One specific example here is they give is a customer of a bank wishes to pay a merchant on another network. So I just mentioned that a few minutes ago. Right now, there's a number of different engineering workarounds, you could call them, to make that happen. Usually constructed with a clearinghouse. And what a clearinghouse is it's just basically a entity that manages the post-trading, pre-settlement, credit exposures. It monitors the risk and the netting of the trades to single positions. And they also handle like tax handling and failure handling, okay? So if one party transacts with another, maybe it doesn't clear, so they're basically the clearinghouse facilitates and manages that interchange via established protocols. This white paper goes on to talk about the Nostro-Vostro accounts, which that was interesting to me. I didn't really know that term because I'm not a financial guru here. And by the way, this is all just for educational purposes only, but you guys might find this very informative. So what a Nostro and Vostro account, they're actually Italian terms that describe the same bank account, but they're used in different contexts. So, for example, if a bank, Bank A uses Nostro account to refer to its account that is held by Bank B, but Nostro means our. So it's a way of saying our money is on deposit at your bank, okay? Versus Vostro, which is your money that is on deposit at our bank. So that's kind of maybe helps clarify what that actually means. I wasn't familiar with that term, guys, so maybe you guys are, but it was new for me. Let's see what else it says here, guys. So decentralized networks allow for a controlling entity to arbitrarily change the mechanisms which result in significant amount of transaction costs via information costs, due diligence, and contractual enforcement between all parties. So what it's saying there is, again, they change the rules, they may change the fees associated with all the work that they need to do, which in reality right now with blockchain technology could be eliminated, okay? That's what this is saying. And that's their belief. That's what their thesis is. So the third paragraph goes into that. We believe there's currently a large emerging market of disruption in digital payments with new payment platforms like Venmo. So I actually use Venmo. It's a great service. I actually pay for a lot of services using that. And basically what they're saying is that these networks have significant aversion, or they don't want to do it basically to interchange across networks. So there's more costs involved to do the interchanging, and there's a reluctance to use central counterparties because usually those counterparties are associated with one entity or the other entity. So that's another good point there. And then the third point they talk about, which is larger networks have significant incentive around protection of their network effects, but they believe that there is a long tail of entities wishing to provide e-wallet services. What is this whole long tail discussion, guys? You might be interested in learning about that, because I'm always about introducing topics for you guys to incorporate into your lexicon for not only this project of Omisego, but other projects as well. The theory of long tail is that really our culture and just the overall economics, I guess, and the way the world is going now is shifting away from macro product services to more niche level product services. And especially as the costs and production fall, especially online, there's now less need to lump in all the offerings into just one product, for example. And a good example of this is smaller merchants potentially who are providing specific services to a specific demographic, right? Now, maybe individually that business doesn't represent a huge amount of money or liquidity or revenue, and it may not be significant for a bank to view as important, but collectively in these emerging markets, that could represent billions of dollars in capital. So this is this whole principle of long tail economics. You can see here the popularity of the head, and towards the right, this long tail of products, okay, which is much longer. And if you took the area of this curve, not to get too nerdy here, but if you took the area of the long tail curve and you compared it to the head and the popularity curve, you'd actually see that it could be of the same quantity, like in terms of revenue or market or whatever you're looking at, versus this popularity head, okay? And so this is where things are going, is what it's saying. And actually the long tail will eventually start to eat into this popularity head, and you'll get more products on the long tail, okay? Or services are more niche-based. A good example of that today, guys, is media. So you're starting to see that. It's very easy. It's a low-hanging fruit type of example like that, where you have, you know, the old bastions of NBC and CBS, which were very dominant at one time. And now we're seeing that artists and movies and different things are starting to branch out into more of a decentralized type architecture, okay? Because people have very specific interests, and they maybe don't want to watch what is on mainstream. Okay, so that's just one example, guys. And most of those services require some type of payment gateway and some way, obviously, on the decentralized exchanges to trade value between Ethereum and Ethereum-based projects, right? So that's what this is entailing. Hopefully, I didn't belabor that point too much, but just wanted to share that with you guys. So it just talks about that, exactly, that these mid-sized participants, I just mentioned what that is, really, will be able to cross-value across networks in order to reach sufficient network effects and usability. And if you guys know about blockchain technologies and any businesses, you know that network effects are extremely critical, because network effects basically are correlated with liquidity. So unless you have a large network of users within a maybe a payment processor or some type of service to change value, the illiquidity in that market causes a lot of problems. For one, there's higher price volatility, right? That's just one example, guys. And it also makes it very hard for people to access that technology. So by providing cross-value amongst many different networks, you're basically increasing liquidity. So you're stabilizing maybe the value a little bit more. You're finding the true worth of that technology, and you're able to expose more people to the technology itself. Okay. So that's what that's about. It goes on to say blockchains allow society to externalize the world's businesses process from single centralized corporations into open decentralized computing networks. So basically, they sum it up by saying Omisego is a network which decentralizes market liquidity, order book matching and execution, clearinghouse custodianship, and high scalability payments, okay, to help resolve payments across these emerging e-wallet payment networks. Now, goes on to say here they're shifting this from the single corporations to more of a decentralized, high-performance open network. So there's going to be several e-wallet providers, not just one. And Omisego is providing that interchange process, or maybe code and logic, okay, to link all these together. That's what it's about. Their design approach succinctly is, and this is all from the white paper, guys, construction of a DEX, decentralized mechanism for the wallet platforms, okay? Now, the key thing that maybe is not talked about so much, guys, that I want to bring to your attention is it says here, construction of a decentralized mechanism for e-wallet platforms holding fiat-backed value, as well as native opt-in support for cryptocurrencies. The e-wallet fiat tokens will have the ability to use Ether on the decentralized public Ethereum chain or any other decentralized cryptocurrency. Now, what I interpret that to mean, guys, and I could be wrong here, but how I interpret that is very similar to the, if you guys know BitShares, okay? BitShares is, here's an example of BitShares. Okay, BitShares is basically a DEX, it's a decentralized exchange. And on BitShares, and I'm not going to go on a tangent here, but what BitShares has right now is they basically have these derivative tokens, you could call them, which track the real value of different currencies, like the US dollar. They have the Chinese yuan, and I believe they also have the euro, okay? And what this provides is some, they're actually backed by actual cryptocurrency tokens of some kind. You can use Ether or what have you. But these basically provide a backing for that derivative of or representation of the fiat currency. Now, do you guys think that's what this is meant by fiat tokens? I would love to know your thoughts. But basically, how these could be used as an interchange and intermediary, okay, as a common base. So think about, you have several of these tokens in the future, hundreds of them, thousands of them. You need common bases, okay? The common basis could be more price stable fiat tokens, such as fiat token US dollar, fiat token euro, fiat token yuan, okay, to provide that base for actually exchanging value across multiple wallets. That's my interpretation of it, guys. I'd love to know what you guys think, and love to hear your questions as well. At its core, for this decentralized network to do e-wallet interchange, a blockchain ledger on Omisego is necessary to hold general balance of funds per e-wallet service. That is, any user or node. Okay, so that pretty much makes sense. But it also goes on to say, and this was another little nugget I found, is that this ledger must be able to hold funds across many assets and commodities. So you could see that they're planning something here, and it doesn't just involve potentially cryptocurrencies. It involves other potential asset classes of funds, maybe, or backing, that is. So you could have commodities-backed cryptocurrencies. And it allows then, so then this mechanism allows basically a trade of both assets and commodities. And I think that's what is key here. This could be basically another way to facilitate some type of trading of various assets. The low-hanging fruit ones being cryptocurrencies and commodities, sort of what Veritasium was maybe talking about for a long time. I don't know, we'll have to see, but it's rolled into one, and what we've established so far is that Omisego is basically going to be building, it sounds like, a DEX, which I just showed. BitShares has a version of. It's not very friendly, guys. I think that's why it hasn't had a lot of transaction. I know a lot of people on YouTube have sort of indicated that Omisego is doing groundbreaking work by creating a DEX, but we have a lot of examples of that today. I think the main thing that's been missing with some of those has been some marketing, excellent user experience, and key customer support, as well as KYC type stuff. So BitShares has a lot of that. They have the speed execution. They have some of these derivatives features, and there is ability to create tokens backed by other assets, but in some ways it's just hasn't quite fulfilled the original vision. And I think sounds like Omisego may do some of that and more. And I'm going to get into the other piece that might be required for this. Okay, so let's continue here. It may be necessary to use cryptocurrency for a liquid market without single preference by bonding Ethereum into a smart contract. It is possible to lock up Ether onto the activity of the Omisego chain to allow for e-wallet pairs to occur over Ether or other cryptocurrencies. So again, that goes back to it. These pairs that you need and incorporating that into to solve this liquidity problem. Okay. Goes on to talk about here small spreads. For small spreads, the e-wallet tokens themselves can be used for the interchange crossing, but it just, by allowing for cryptocurrencies to be the backing for e-wallet platforms, the platforms can be assured of an even playing field between e-wallet interchange activities. Okay, so what that is about is, say you have one e-wallet, like you have one platform versus another platform, and one platform is purporting to, offer some type of derivative-based token or backed token, or maybe even some other kind of token. Okay, and these are all commonly defined amongst the different platforms. There's likely, it seems here, like an auditable way to determine the value, okay, amongst the platforms, and to avoid some type of funny business, okay, or advantages between those e-wallets, e-wallet interchange activities. That's what I got from it, guys. Now, it does go on to say here, though, that this Omisego DEX exchange, the decentralized exchange, may not be desirable to transact low-value interchange activity. Okay, an example that would be the high-volume micropayments. So an example that would be going to the coffee shop, right, and getting coffee. It doesn't sound like this would be the solution for it. Now, I'm going to elaborate more on what they're saying might solve that problem. Not every payment between two distinct wallets must be performed using a trade on the DEX. There is an expectation that e-wallets will hold some reserve of fiat tokens, there's that term again, guys, of other e-wallets ready to be used for smaller transfers in popular directions. So an example of this, guys, again, and I'm not comparing the two, but I just want to make sure that everybody's aware. BitShares kind of offers something similar with their derived fiat tokens. I think what they have there is they use BTS to actually back some of these, and I think they require like 2 times the trading that would be done on that. But in a sense, it allows for these quick transactions and swapping of fiat between different platforms within the BitShares system, if you will. I kind of sense they're maybe doing something similar here. I'd love to hear what you guys think, if you guys know anything about that. That was one of my questions. But it basically goes on to say that with all this, construction, it allows for the interchange. It supports the DEX. We talked about that. It obviously does cryptocurrency matching, an order book, and clearinghouses without full custody trust. Full custody trust, guys, just is an example of that, just to put it in your mind, would be like Poloniex or Coinbase. So these guys, when you trade on Coinbase, they basically take ownership of they take custody of your tokens or your coins. So the transfer goes from you to them. In this case, they're saying that the coins will always reside with you, but they will still offer, liquidity and a robust platform for you to basically transact and make trades. Okay. One thing that is missing here, guys, that I'm a little bit interested in knowing about a little bit more is the fact that what's up, Break? Yeah, I'm glad I'm back on too. It's been a long time, to be honest with you. Probably way too long. I've just been super busy reviewing white papers and figuring out, different strategies for cryptocurrencies, just like you guys. And I think I got everything dialed in at this point. And in fact, if you've noticed, my strategy right now is to cover more of the white papers and focus less on the hype. I want to actually see applications get built. So this is my way to help the crypto community, and I want to have those technical discussions and focus less on where things based on pumping and dumping go, because that's I think we're nearing the point we're at Q4 right now. So all these applications are going to be due out, and we're going to have to see how well they do. It's a very exciting time, actually. So we basically are a quarter of the way through the review of the white paper. The next part goes into the decentralized liquidity hub for channels, and basically what they're talking about here is they're basically getting at the fact that for individual token payments on blockchains, obviously there's a need to scale the underlying blockchain activity, which does not affect the underlying chain, and they're getting at the computational requirements for doing that. So they are proposing, it looks like here, to conduct Lightning Network activities using channels. And then they go on to talk about, though, that this faces pressure around network effects with capital. It's desirable to prevent liquidity pools from centralizing to a single trusted entity. So again, they're trying to balance the centralized versus decentralized issues. It does go on to say, though, by using the same mechanisms of the decentralized clearinghouse, we can create a Lightning hub which is not owned by any single individual on tokens, which support more complex smart contracts. So very interesting there. They believe in the natural network effects of liquidity centralization can be mitigated by decentralized state chains with deterministic known consensus rules. Very interesting. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. That's not very clear at this time how that's going to be implemented, in my opinion. It does say that all participants set up channels into a Ethereum smart contract operating as a single pool of funds. The current state of Omisego chain reflects the current balance of participants. And so this allows for any person to supply money, or liquidity, onto this network, which can be allocated in accordance with the consensus rules. And so they're proposing that's a way to get around the, liquidity requirements for this hub of channels. Blockchain overview and mechanism. I'm going to just focus on the touch points here. They're talking about here bond trading activity and the public Ethereum chain with contract execution input being input by the Omisego chain. Sorry. So they're saying that basically the Ethereum main chain, the activity, basically all this activity and the mechanisms they proposed above, like in sections 2, they can't really, they're not suitable for the Ethereum main chain. So they're proposing to bond is what they're saying, the trading activity between the two. And let's see what I had here. Okay. They're just saying that activity on other chains can interlink between this chain via interchain committed proofs, similar to the Bitcoin relay on the Omisego chain, which can be submitted to Ethereum. And then Omisego chain acts basically to validate the activity of all the participants. So the nutshell here, guys, is in green. In other words, the role of the Omisego token is providing computation and enforcement, okay, for the interchange in value. The token itself acts as a bond for its activity on this blockchain. Improper activity results in the token bond being burned on the Omisego chain. So that's very interesting. Future iterations may include sharding of the Omisego chain. Now, all nodes on the network store and process all transactions taking place in the network. But what they're saying here is that obviously that increases the requirements, and it's very labor intensive to do those transactions. So by sharding, it's basically taking a small subset of the network nodes and validating every single transaction. But it frees up the others to basically complete more of the subset transactions, is how I interpret that. And if anybody's on that can clarify that, please let me know. But it's a way to basically speed up and provide the high throughput capacity for the block propagation. Okay. So owning Omisego tokens buys the right to validate this blockchain within its consensus rules. Transaction fees on the network, including but not limited to payment, interchange trading, and clearinghouse use, are given to non-faulty validators to enforce bonded contract states. Therefore, the token will have value derived from the fees derived from this network. That's like a redundant derived, but with the obligation cost of providing validation to its users. This token must have value to prevent low-cost attacks and is necessary to enforce this network. So very interesting there. I'm going to talk about validation, maybe delegating this validation to third parties, but I think initially that's not part of the roadmap, guys. It goes on to talk about the Omisego blockchain manages matching and managing order execution on the Ethereum chain. They do expect to do partial validation in the future for nodes which do not allow for blockchain reorgs. So that's key. So blockchain can't really reorganize, otherwise it could increase the risk of some issues. We also have, what's up, James? We also have the native SPV, aka Special Purpose Vehicles validation, which blockchains that support reorgs are not permitted on this network for security. So that's good to know. It sounds like they want to make sure that they minimize the risk and have a very seamless way to perform the near instantaneous clearing and settlement of activity. And they're doing that by limiting some of the constraints on how I think they validate the transactions. So I talk about the actual details of that, of the consensus mechanism and security properties will be provided by Joseph Poon. I guess it was already released, so we won't get into that. This gets into the light client validation. So I talked about kind of the sharding, and so while Omisego is constructed as a high-performance network capable of handling many transactions, it will become necessary to produce light client proofs for partial validation as well as for external smart contract enforcement. So it goes on to talk about a Merkle tree of committed transactions per block will be included, as well as a commitment to the recent block state. The current state can be acquired by any node by downloading the recent block state committed and any blocks between. So what is this, guys? Let's go to... Did I still have that? No, I must have got rid of it. Okay. Well, I wanted to give you guys a visual example of what that actually means, but I have to do it another time because I must have deleted the tab for that. Okay, so a big deliverable here for Omisego, obviously, is, and one of the things they emphasize, which I found interesting, is that it says, while Omisego supports payments, it is not designed, first and foremost, a payment processor within a specific e-wallet payment providers. So they're believing that there's no coordination problem with a single EPP, but they're saying there's a problem, and the thing they're trying to solve is the coordination between the e-wallet payment providers themselves. So it goes on to talk about, again, this blockchain allows for EPP to provide token issuance on Omisego. This allows for fiat-denominated currencies backed by fiat on the platform or any asset class, such as loyalty points. Omisego is an open system allowing for anyone to issue assets, but it's up to the individual users to ensure correct issuance and auditing. So the way I see that, guys, is you have a mid-level business or maybe even a larger business that has a huge customer base, okay? And maybe part of this strategy is not only to facilitate the payments of goods and services, but to also do loyalty points in the form of a crypto, a token of some sort, okay? And these themselves could be backed by fiat or some other form, okay, to provide some maybe validation of them. They also go up to talk about how else it could be validated, and they say that another option is to basically issue these ERC20 tokens and then lock them up in a smart contract on the Omisego chain. So again, one would handle existing ERC20 tokens on the Omisego chain, but their default configuration is presumed that the e-wallet provider holds funds directly on behalf of its users for ease of use. So it's I guess initially, guys, the way I read this is it's a full custody cryptocurrency type style like Coinbase or Poloniex, and maybe it evolves from there. But still very interesting because it does provide that capability amongst mid-level businesses, like other entities, not just Poloniex and Coinbase. So that's pretty neat, if you ask me. So it says by basically building this platform, it will be possible to directly exchange fiat-backed tokens with DEX currencies and protocol tokens on the Omisego blockchain. Okay, so it goes back to what I was saying about how BitShares works and maybe a more friendlier version of that, but also having the ability to onboard businesses with their own fiat-backed tokens is how I see this. And it goes on to say transfer restrictions requiring a certificate from the user. Issuer of the token may be allowed for issue tokens depending upon the user policy. So it's not always required, but something to keep in mind. Section 5 is on the DEX exchange, the decentralized exchange. We've already talked a lot about that and what it is. For those that don't know, a DEX, a good example of that is EtherDelta. So think about that, but just probably a higher quality version of that. And one where you have multiple wallets that can interface to that DEX. So very neat thing there, guys. And to facilitate market liquidity, I'm sure they're going to have common base fiat-backed, I guess, tokens that, or currencies that represent actual values. And I kind of alluded to that in the past. I think that's probably the way to do it because that is going to provide the most liquidity for trading tokens, and it also provides some stability when conducting commerce. But the e-wallet providers are responsible for holding balances of other EPPs they wish to support for fast transactions. So they may need to have a specific reserve to basically have a e-wallet system that can support very fast transactions, like your coffee cup scenarios. Okay, that's what that's about. It goes on to say that the purpose of this network is designed with the goal of being a preeminent high-value exchange and settlement platform, not a high-volume, low-value network. So, again, for those exchanges that want, EPPs that want high volume, low value, they will have to sounds like they will have to put in reserves, I'm thinking, to allow that to happen. And that's not part of the scope of work for this Omisego project. So they believe that trusted non-custodial execution is a credible option as a complement to a DEX engine, and Omisego may support these platforms in the future as well. Very interesting there. So Ethereum trading, it goes on to say a transaction tracks activity of the Omisego chain and needs some level of maturity confirmations before payment is delivered on the Ethereum chain. Funds can still be settled on Omisego and balances updated for continued trading. It is only for final delivery when the payment occurs on Ethereum. So again, this could be a way to use Omisego to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And then, when you're done, then you settle the payment on the Ethereum blockchain. Very similar to what Lightning Network has proposed. That's the way I see it. And they go on to talk about that, actually. So there may be a connection with Litecoin here, or Lightning Networks. And we'll have to see how that interplays in the next few months. And then they go on to compare this proposal or white paper with other works. So it talks about full custody cryptocurrency exchanges such as Poloniex. They are around and people use them. But obviously anybody who uses them is trusting that single party to hold the assets responsibly and execute the orders honestly. So huge reliance there. That's the whole driver of getting away from those. And then, again, this is not the only one. There's others like it. I've already mentioned an example of that, being BitShares, which has been around for several years. Many decentralized exchange platforms using the Ethereum Virtual Machine, or EVM. Smart contracts rely either upon doing things directly on the chain. The problem with this, guys, and what they're trying to get around with this is all the fees that go with that. So every time you do a transaction, for example, on, let's say, EtherDelta, those fees start to add up, and if you have several of these transactions, it starts to not pencil out so well, okay, as an alternative to what we have today. That's how I interpret that. The Omisego chain is designed to operate trading across chains, Ethereum to Bitcoin, without using full custody issued assets for native cryptocurrencies. But one of the problems is, emerging networks may also provide designs related to DEX. For example, Cosmos. But they go on to say that these haven't really been deployed. They can't evaluate or compare the differences. So, really interesting there. They talk about the Bitcoin clearinghouse. What this is a construction that allows for the clearinghouse to operate as an oracle with activity bounded and enforced by a Omisego chain to enable decentralized exchange with Bitcoin-like blockchains. What these are the clearinghouses. They're used to ensure that payments occur on the Bitcoin blockchain. They use clearinghouses instead of special purpose vehicle proofs, I believe, to prevent basically evil incentives by Bitcoin miners to generate blocks which are incompatible with consensus but valid with SPV proofs in order to attack external systems. So it talks about the malleability fix, segregated witness, which we're good there. Clearinghouses operate a Lightning channel, but they hold not only funds on their side in the channel, but a multiple of expected fund flows on the Omisego chain held in Ethereum. So it goes back to what I just talked about with some of the other platforms I've studied, where they have a certain reserve and basically covers the activity and maybe multiples of them, and that's just to minimize risk of lack of liquidity based on that system, or lack of the capital requirements. So they go on to give an example here of that clearinghouse between Alice, Carol, and Bob. I think CryptoBud in his video covered that, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. For those that are interested, I would recommend you watch that video. So with that said, you guys kind of have, I think, a sense of what they're doing with the clearinghouses, the decentralized exchange. They do talk about this smart contract data feed. So here's that, Merkle trees. They go on to say that this allows for third-party systems to be able to use this information for participants to net out activity on a single venue. If participants use the price oracle feed on the Omisego chain as a basis for pricing on smart contracts, they can have greater assurance, basically trust, of the execution by placing orders on the OMG chain. And this creates significant network effects, i.e. users, okay, of the Omisego chain, which greater adoption of smart contracts. So that's always good, guys. So economic implications for Omisego tokens. This might be important for those that are still with me and following this white paper. The transaction fees are native to the Omisego chain. The validators earn fees from validating the activity of the blockchain. Payments and interchange fees are used to pay for activity on this network and to incentivize honest activity. Bonding has a cost. Those who bond on behalf of others on this network will likely charge fees, i.e. clearinghouses. There are limitations, so the SPV validation of other chains is presumed to be insecure with blockchains that do not discourage reorganizations. For chains that allow reorgs, either full node validation of that chain is required, or an HTLC clearinghouse construction is needed. So it'll be really interesting to see how, if this starts to interact with a project like EOS, okay, I'm wondering what that will result in. That's because I think with some of these, I mean, the whole point of some of these new chains, I thought, was that they can have some slight reorganization and to facilitate scaling. So I'd have to get some more understanding of what it means for chains which allow reorgs. What are the limitations of that? So, and I do think, by the way, guys, for those that are on this channel, hey, what's up, Shalom? That in fact, you know, a project like EOS is going to make a huge push. And there's some very interesting business models if you read that white paper and you've been following the Beyond Bitcoin sessions on YouTube. There's a lot of great information there. What's up? What's up, Michelle? There's a lot of great information there about how what the use cases will be and what's going to encourage adoption of the technology. And so it's very exciting. For those that have followed my channel, you know, probably about a month ago, I put out a video on EOS, and I was pounding the table because I saw an opportunity to basically pick up those you know, tokens. I do think that, you know, it's had a huge run-up, probably well ahead of itself in terms of maybe where it is. But you have to also understand, Shalom and others, that some of that was due to speculation, right or wrong, okay? That, in fact, the team of EOS has already on board, you know, at least a handful of solid dApps. And arguably, they're saying that they're going to have 1,000 or something like that. Now, I don't think, you know, they're going to have 1,000 solid dApps, but you'd have to think that maybe a portion of those dApps are, in fact, at a decent level, okay, which will garner interest and improve the market cap and certainly the number of users or people who are interested in a technology like EOS. Will it be enough to cause the platform to increase to, you know, billions of in terms of a market cap? I don't know. I mean, it only takes a few cool projects. It only takes, you know, a handful of good projects to push, I think, these types of systems up in that way. With Ethereum, you have probably 1,000 projects right now. How many of them, guys, are off the ground and fully scaling with massive amounts of users actually using the technology? I'm sorry to say, but we just don't have that right now. I think that's part of the problem. Until we start to see that, I think there is still some competition in the market, and you know, EOS is certainly trying to make the case for onboarding the traditional Silicon Valley tech programmers, I should say, and developers onto their platform. So something I'm keeping an eye on. Obviously, I made that video. I am sure you guys could imagine what I did at that time. Didn't buy, you know, at the levels now at $1, but certainly when it was down 50 cents, I thought that was very attractive in my opinion. I'll just leave it at that. You guys can draw your own conclusions what Wealth of the Future did at that point. Let's see what else we got here. So it goes on to say in this paper, though, that it is not clear what the long-term value participants of this network can derive and may be affected by competition in space. There are no guarantees provided by participating as a validator, as this is an area which is still being technically explored in the space. Very interesting. So the conclusion statement is, with the emerging popularity of e-wallet platforms, silo networks are becoming a problem. We've seen a lot of that, guys. So they're saying that this is an opportunity for, and they use the term fiat tokens, to interchange across a decentralized network, along with cross-compatibility with cryptocurrencies. In order to build this decentralized network, it requires not only a blockchain well suited for payments and interchange of issued tokens, but also a DEX, a decentralized exchange, aka EtherDelta, which supports these activities, as well as incentives around creating well-functioning liquidity pools. Very interesting there, guys. Eventually, these issued tokens may asymptotically get closer and closer to full decentralization, including user-owned keys, which maximizes agency of the individual. The way I see that, guys, is what they're saying is everybody is basically going to have their own bank. Now, a lot of people could argue that Bitcoin does that, but it doesn't quite do that because, in fact, the problem right now is that with Bitcoin, there is no gateway in. Okay, let's see if I can give you an example of that. Let's see here. All right, guys. So hopefully you guys can see this. My screen's a little skewed, but what this is, guys, is the Omisego tweet that was sent out, I think, at the end of October. And basically, what it's showing is a 4-layer system. The first layer is the payment acceptance. That's the wallet SDK prototype. And the public release, that's pretty much there. Our layer 2, which is more interesting, is what's called the decentralized cash-in, cash-out. This is the touchpoint interface with the payment gateway, and I think that's one that is really the golden, not the golden ticket, but the holy grail. Okay, is the way I interpret that, guys, and please comment if you have opinions about this. But the problem right now with all these DEX, including BitShares, by the way, and EtherDelta, while they do provide an alternative to Coinbase and Polo, the problem with them, really, in a nutshell, is, especially with EtherDelta, is there's no way that they facilitate a fiat, like a way to, like Omisego right now, the way they're designing this. Omisego, the way I envision it, is like the highway for trading cryptocurrencies. Okay, once you're on it, once you have your cryptos, Omisego is probably the best product that will be out there to facilitate trading and to perform commerce with businesses that also are basically adopting this technology. The real problem, though, is how do you bring in new people? How do you onboard, the developing countries' populations? How do you get them into crypto with no banking, no exposure to banking services? If Omisego can tie that solution into their product in terms of creating this cash in, cash out touchpoint interface and what that actually looks like, that is going to be very, very bullish for Omisego. Okay, so what I'm about to say is not, please don't take it as trading advice, but the way I think about it, guys, is right now, the Shalams of the world, the Wolf of the Futures of the world, the Cryptos of the world, the Mike B's of the world, everybody who's within this community, it's a very small community right now. I mean, you could say, well, it's pretty big. I mean, but if you look at the global population, okay, it's still paltry. Even the market cap is paltry, guys. We're only at, a few hundred billion. Until, we get to probably $1 trillion, we probably won't command the respect of the more well-to-do areas of the population, including the United States. People are not looking at cryptocurrencies very seriously right now. But here's the thing. You have a lot of emerging markets where people are very interested in this platform because they do not today have mobile banking services. So if Omisego has a way to provide that via a mobile wallet, okay, something that they can store on their phone, and maybe some way to locally trade the fiat currency into this fiat token, that, guys, is the holy grail in my book. That is worth, it almost makes, and I'm not going to overhype this, but it almost makes the projects we have on Ethereum today, if you combine them all, okay, I won't go that far, but it makes Omisego as integral to Ethereum as Ethereum itself. I'm going to say that again, because maybe y'all didn't hear. It makes Omisego as critical to Ethereum as the value of Ethereum itself. So if you think about it like that, because Omisego, if it has that feature, it's basically not only the highway, it is a way to onboard people of the world to this new technology. That is worth lots of money. If you care to try to understand how much it could be worth, think about what PayPal did to payment systems. I expect, although I don't know, this is just my opinion, so don't run with it, okay? Don't blame me later if it doesn't turn out this way. But I would expect that because of what I just said, like because of that whole logic, you are going to, you're going to see that the value of technologies which facilitate that they're going to be worth, I think, in terms of their adoption and potentially their actual value, as much as the platforms themselves. And if you look at the fact that Omisego has similar amount of tokens to Ethereum, I think you can read between the lines and deduce what value Omisego should probably be at once that adoption occurs, assuming they have this cash in, cash out feature, because they would be one of the few, or probably the first to offer that. Okay, and if they can infiltrate themselves and develop a name for themselves to have that in Asia especially, that will be their sweet spot. The DEX is not as, in my opinion, as impressive. I just showed you an example of a DEX on BitShares that has some of the features. So really the key, in my opinion, is this layer 2. I personally am going to be all ears the next couple weeks to hear from the Omisego team what their strategy is in implementing this and whether it is what I think it will be. If it's not, then that thesis I just told you guys about in terms of the value of Omisego goes out of the window. If it is, and we find out that they're implementing these technologies to do that cash in, cash out touch point, working with their parent company, Omis, then that is going to be very special, okay? And for those that maybe aren't aware, this is Omis's website, and they are an established company. They do already payment management platform solutions for businesses. I want to see if they can leverage some of their experience to bring on this key module that would be needed for Omisego. Some people have speculated that potentially Omisego may Omis may branch off this cash in, cash out gateway into another ICO, but I'm thinking they're actually going to implement it within Omisego itself. And if that happens, guys, look out. That's all I can say about that, okay? So because of my review of this white paper, I kind of went through it with you guys very quickly. Obviously, I haven't been getting too much sleep because I've been doing a lot of work on different things as well as my regular job, but I am fairly confident about at least following Omisego and continuing to report on it on this channel. So if you like this content, consider subscribing. Please comment, ask questions, and thank you so much for watching. Shalom asked, how many singles do I own? I have a good amount, Shalom, I think an impressive amount, more than most people, I would say. And I'll put it to you this way, Shalom. If SingularDTV is an awesome concept, and there's a lot of people right now in the entertainment artist game, okay? They're trying to basically capture that tokenized model like Singular is doing. I think though Singular has some advantages. They've been working on this for a number of years, believe it or not. They were actually one of the first ICOs within Ethereum. They finally just launched Token. And I like that they didn't hype it so much. They had Grammatic come on, and they were able to raise, I think Grammatic was able to raise $2 million. So a small percentage of the Grammatic tokens were supported, I guess you could say, or a TGE event. Got to be careful with my words here. But that was successful, and they have a lot of neat other projects that are coming online. What I gave feedback to the team on just this week is the fact that I think once we start to see the other tools within that ecosystem come online and become developed, you're going to see I think a user explosion. And when you see the user explosion, when you see the network effect of that system, you have something that can compete directly and offer better value than Netflix, than YouTube. And all the tools are going to be there. So what I was looking to understand with the SingularDTV project team is what their timeline is on bringing in those other roles. The specific thing I asked for Shalom and others who are kind of curious about that is, so my idea is more about supporting roles, so not just artists, which is their main focus right now, but really the next phase, which is a publicist or a writer or a makeup artist or it could be a lot of things, a marketing specialist, because obviously this is a new ecosystem. With those projects themselves, the artist is going to need additional talent to launch those projects and make them successful. An example that could be an event planner. It could be a lyricist, right? Someone who writes the music. Maybe the artist initially is so talented that they do everything, but in the future, there's going to be a whole team of people that create that artist's ecosystem. That could be, a handful of people, a dozen people, maybe more. And each of those people, because they're invested in the artist from the beginning, maybe it creates a very unique value proposition to tokenize, give them a share of the IP, if you will, okay, for creating and growing the IP of that artist. Another example would be a group of artists. So not just one artist, but you have like a whole band and a way to allocate, rewards for people within that band. Now, there's a lot of challenges with this, and I think Singular is aware of the things they need to implement, like in the future, to basically make this a little bit more robust and foolproof. So, like one example of that is if a bandmate disbands themselves, like they don't want to be part of that group or band anymore, then there needs to be a way to, I guess, alter that in some flexible way, or maybe do some type of arbitration. But I don't think this is going away, guys. And I'm going to be monitoring this. I know they're opened up here in Los Angeles, so it'll be really neat to see once we get more news on artists joining this network. It's a bold step, given the pedo news demonetized, of course, because I just mentioned that I'll probably be demonetized, even though I'm not monetized right now. But I guess my point is, with all the news coming out of Hollywood, this is a confluence, in my opinion, it's basically the right time for this technology. Okay, you're seeing a lot of things happen in Hollywood. I lived in Venice, by the way, for many years. At one time in my life, I was really into modeling and just different things. Okay, that's another story, but I can tell you that it's a really tough place. There's a lot of shady stuff that probably goes on, and there's a lot of censorship on expression. And so a platform like Singular offers a way to get around that. Okay, there is no censorship, there is no restriction on expression, and I think something, either SingularDTV or something like it, is going to give the broadcasters and media companies that are worth today collectively hundreds of billions of dollars to run for their money. Think about this, guys. Netflix is today, I think, worth $85 billion. What if Singular or some outfit like it was able to take 5 to 10% of that creative output from the market and do it and distribute the rewards in a fair manner? You're looking at several $billion. That's just my opinion, so just don't go running off and investing everything you have, because there's a lot of risk right now. But I guess you can figure out, Shalom, what I've done, and I'm happy with the project. Yeah, it's been really cool. So supporting them, supporting this EOS, obviously, and supporting Omisego. So let me know what you guys think. I want to thank you guys for coming on to my channel. If you have any questions, please hit that like button. And hope you guys are having an awesome weekend. I will see you probably next week. And I think next week we'll have some news on Omisego, because there's a conference that's coming up. So I plan to cover that. So tune in next week, probably around the same time. And yeah, stay good, guys. And this is Wealth of the Future signing off. Peace.